Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick from Smart Drive Test talking to you today about finding a job. And yes, this is geared towards truck drivers, bus drivers, but these skills and techniques will work for anybody looking for work. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about job search skills, how to find a job. This is not easy and can be tough, and it can be intimidating for some because you need to find a job and you don't have a job. It's a pain in the butt. You don't have any money coming in. You need to, how do you do that? You can't just look at classifieds on Craigslist and Kijiji, other job finding websites and whatnot. You need to figure out where the jobs are. And I'll tell you right now, most of the jobs are not advertised. 75% of jobs are not advertised. And if you're looking for work, you cold call, you network, you get in touch with people who are responsible for doing the hiring, and you show up one day. You know exactly the job that you want. In the case of what we're talking about today, you want to be a truck driver, you want to be a bus driver. You are doing that person a favor because these people are exceptionally busy. I am exceptionally busy. I get emails all the time making inquiries, asking me questions. And sometimes people have to talk to me 3, 4, 5 times. They have to call me, they have to send me an email. And probably in this day and age, I get so many emails. And if, I'm trying to get better at this, but if I don't respond to an email right away, if I don't respond, sometimes it gets left by the side. So, sorry about that. My phone had a timer on it. Anyway, Hall phase is here. First criminal. Can you quickly explain how runaway truck ramps work? Yes, we can do that, Hall phase. We'll do that in a little bit, not right at this juncture. So, just waiting for a few more people to show up here and get notified that the live stream is going here, getting out to everyone. And after the presentation on finding a job, I'll answer any questions you have about passing a road test, looking for work. Talk about, we can debate the job, the driver shortage in the trucking industry. My point of view on that is that there is not a driver shortage in the trucking industry. There's a driver retention problem. In other words, drivers get into the industry, they don't really know what they're getting into, and they find that the work is a bit tougher than they think. As well, the other issue with many of the trucking companies and many of the drivers who are working, especially the older, the old guard of truck driving, there tends to be a lot of negative sentiments that go around, a lot of negativity, and you get caught up in that culture, and it's really tough to overcome that. And if you start listening to that and you start buying into that, then it's going to be really difficult for you to work in that industry. All right, sign cutter, good evening. I'm getting ready to start my search soon, hoping to find part-time truck driver work, but that doesn't seem to be too likely. Yes, it is likely, sign cutter. There's definitely work there. You just have to get in and figure out how to do that and whatnot. So, without further ado, we're going to get over here to the presentation and get going here. Just bear with me one sec here. I got to get the presentation back to the beginning. Sorry about this. My apologies. There we go. Okay, so getting a job, working as a truck or bus driver, or getting a job, period. As I said in the introduction, these skills that I'm going to talk to you about now will help you to find a job in any industry, any career, anywhere you're working. And I'll tell you, in my lifetime, I have done a lot of job searching. I've done a lot of cold calling, a lot of looking for work and finding the right job. So if you're new to Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license, veteran drivers to remain crash-free, and CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. My name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s, became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997, and also have taught people with disabilities, people to drive hand-controlled vehicles and whatnot. And in 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a doctorate in legal history. And while I was going to university at the University of Melbourne in Australia, I was also driving for Greyhound and drove part-time. So, if you're going for a road test, head over to the Smart Drive Test website. Look down in the description there. You can pick up the checklist for pass your road test first time. That's a really good checklist for new drivers. Also, what I'll put down there as well, the checklist for if you get pulled into a scale, what paperwork you have to take into a scale. So that's for the CDL drivers as well. So, what do you want? You need to know what kind of work you are looking for. You need to do a fair bit of research in terms of the companies, what kind of work they do, and especially if you're looking for bus or truck driver work, there are many, many different companies that you can work for. Is it regional work? Is it long haul work? Is it local work? Is it pulling vans, reefers? If you're driving buses, do you want school bus work? Do you want to drive a tour coach? Do you want to drive for a company like Greyhound, where it's regional work and you're gone every now and again, or whatnot? So decide what kind of work you want to do, because if you're looking for everything and you're just saying to the companies, oh, I'll do whatever you got, the company's not really interested in that. They want you to do the hard work of figuring out what kind of work you want. And if you can do that, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to get a job. And my friend Bill Walker here, the gentleman in the red shirt in the top image here, came in. When did Bill come in? It was 5 years ago now. I guess it's getting on with life and whatnot. But Bill Walker came in, and Bill was older. He was in his 60s, and Bill was going to retire. He came in to get his truck driving license, and he was going to go and work in the oil fields. And he knew he was going to do that because he knew he could make probably $10,000 or $15,000 a month working in the oil fields. And he had a plan. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He knew exactly what kind of work he wanted. He knew how long he was going to be doing this. And it worked out for him because he knew exactly what kind of work he wanted to do in the oil fields. Bill began networking even before he came to truck driving school. He started making phone calls. He worked as a counter guy at one of the auto parts stores here in town. And he just asked everybody. He said, you know anybody in the oil fields? Anybody who works in the oil fields? Any companies that are hiring in the oil fields? And when he did that, he eventually got a phone number for a company that was hiring drivers. And because he networked so efficiently and effectively, he called the company up, said, listen, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to get my license on this date. He was confident that he was going to pass. And they said, yep, give us a call when you're near the end. He was near the end, got his license on Thursday, and he was working on the next Tuesday. That's how effective he was at networking. And this is what you need to do to be successful in looking for a job and getting a job. So one of the things you want to do is you need to figure out what your skill set is. You need to figure out what kind of work you want to do. And nothing is too crazy in terms of finding a job. You if you want to work as a CEO in a company, you obviously you've got to figure out what kind of education you need, what qualifications you need, whether you need a master's in business degree, those types of things, what kind of education you need, because maybe the job that you want, the job that you desire, is at the other end of, maybe a long university career, or you just need to go back to school and get some training, some truck driving school training, or if you decide that you want to be a plumber or you want to be an electrician, then you're going to go to trade school, you're going to do some education, you're going to do some internship. They don't call it internship when you're working as a plumber, but an apprentice. That was the word I was looking for. So you're working as an apprentice or whatnot, and then you go and work in the industry. So you have to figure out what you want to do, what is your job that you want to work at, because as we know, finding a job, getting a job, and getting the job that you want is in of itself a full-time job. So know that you need to do a lot of work to figure out exactly what you want. And some years ago, I went through this process of trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of my life, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, what work I wanted to do, and those types of things. And I spent an incredible amount of time discovering that, and eventually I ended up going to university. I went back to university, finished my degree, and then went on and did university work. I still sort of haven't figured out what my place is in the world and what my job I really want. I mean, now I'm an entrepreneur and I work at home and I make a fairly decent living at it. But, it's been a long journey, and I wouldn't change the journey because I've learned so much along the way, and all of that has made what I'm doing now possible. But it's a long journey, and as I said, sometimes you got to go to school, you got to go back and do retraining. You have to talk to a lot of people. You can do informational interviews and those types of things, but it's a long journey in terms of working towards the job that you really want. Because as we get older, it's not that we figure out what we want to do, but we certainly know what we don't want to do. I know for a fact at the age that I'm at now with 2 little kids, there's no way in life, no way in any stretch of any imagination that I ever want to go back doing shift work. Never going back and doing what I was doing when I was driving truck in the 1990s, running all night, doing those crazy kinds of things. That's just not what I want to do. Sign cutter, part-time hopper work within North Dakota is what I'm hoping to find, something in the agriculture industry. I'd love to get my own truck, but I think the insurance might be cost prohibitive. It might be cost prohibitive right now, sign cutter, but it's certainly something that you could work towards, and certainly something that, maybe you could take on a business partner or something like that. That's something you could work on. But, this is not out of your reach of the type of work that you want to get. You just start networking, you start talking to people and calling companies and showing up and showing them that you're motivated. Eventually you're going to get the work that you want. All right, so as I was saying, sometimes you got to go back to school, vocational school, universities, get certifications. If you're going to drive truck, you might need to get a tanker endorsement. You need to get your air brakes. TDG, Transportation of Dangerous Goods, defensive driving for truck drivers, and all these other types of courses. You might have to do some internship and some on-the-job experience and training and those types of things to eventually get to where you want. So you kind of need to have a plan in place and, plan the work and work the plan to get the job that you really want. And one of the books that I read years ago, which was probably one of the best books that I ever read, and I probably need to go back and reread this book, was Selling for Dummies. And it was an incredible book, and it was basically saying that you're selling yourself. You are selling what you're able to do to a company, and because you have abilities, you have skills that you can put in place, you can drive the truck, you can deal with customers, you can manage time and get there on time, you can do load security, look after the truck and those types of things. These are all the things that companies are looking for when you're looking for work. And this is what you need to do. You need to sell yourself. And it is so true that you need to sell yourself. Years ago, I've taken three courses in my life that the things that I learned in those courses have stayed with me for the rest of my life. And one of the weirdest ones that I learned was how to type. I took typing in high school for 3 years, and I don't know why I ever did, but I'm so glad that I did, because now I type 80, 90 words a minute, which, being somebody who spends all day on the computer, it's incredibly helpful. The next one I did was the 6-week course on how to find a job. And there was a community center in town, an employment agency that did these 6-week courses, and you showed up 6 hours a day, and they showed you how to write resumes, and they showed you how to write cover letters, and they showed you how to network and cold call and how to dress. It was one of those skill sets that I learned from that course that I've carried with me for the rest of my life. And I realized, as I said, that you're selling yourself. And so the third one I had was, managing anger in the family. Was really helpful in terms of controlling my own emotions. Was a really great course that I took just a few years ago when my whole divorce I went through all of that. But going back to finding a job and selling yourself, these were skills that I learned from this course, we learned cold calling. And at the time, I'd become a driving instructor. I wasn't a licensed driving instructor, but I did the certification through the Ontario Safety League in Toronto. And I wanted a job as a safety officer working in a company. And it was really tough to get because I wasn't a licensed driving instructor. But I was determined that I was going to do this. I got really motivated with this course that I was doing. I was cold calling every day. And I called up the Transit Authority in London, Ontario, and I said, listen, this is the work that I'm looking for. Might you have anything? And they said, no, not at this juncture. I said, okay, can I drop my resume off? They said, yep, you can drop your resume off. So the next day I went down. I had been talking to the operations manager. I knew that was the person who was doing the hiring. And I went in. I said, listen, can I talk to Bill Smith, the operations manager? They said, oh, he's in a meeting. And I said, can I wait? And they said, yes, you can. And so I waited 2.5 hours for him to come out of the meeting and come out. And yes, it was only 30 seconds in the time that I met him, introduced myself, handed him my resume, my cover letter, and then I left. But I waited 2.5 hours for him to show up so I could hand it to him. And it's a little mini interview, right? They meet you, they see whether they kind of like you, they get first impressions, those types of things. You hand your paperwork to them. And interestingly enough, they called me back the next day and they said, listen, we might have something for you. And I was like, okay. It wasn't the work that I wanted, but it was an 8-week contract that paid me $8,000. And it was very timely in my life. It was something that I very much needed. So this is what you're selling, is you're selling yourself as an asset, and you need to do that. So where are the jobs? And cold calling, networking, I've been referring to this, I've been talking about this. So you need to look online, especially if you're looking for work in the oil fields, as Bill did. You need to get online, you need to talk to these companies, company websites, calling, networking. Talk to everybody that you can think of to find a job, and get on the phone and call the companies. Make a list of the companies that you want to work for. Go on their websites and do research. It's exactly what Sign Cutter said here. He wants to do part-time hopper work. Hoppers are trailers that goes on the back of trucks that haul grains, and they're called hoppers. So those are the companies that you want to target. You go on to the website. You're in North Dakota. You type every company in that you can drive to every day and work, or you can stay there or find someplace else to stay, and you get on the phone and you start calling these people. And normally it's going to be the operations manager that you want to talk to in terms of getting hired by these companies. You say who you are. You say you've got your truck driving license. You've got other skills, because remember, a lot of the skills from other jobs are all transferable skills. If you don't have a lot of driving experience, you talk about counter work that you've done, working with customers, paperwork. Can't teach you how to fill out paperwork and all those types of things. That takes a long time. So know that there are a lot of transferable skills that you can put in place that will help you to get a job and secure a job with that company. Whoops, sorry, my bad. So cold calling. When you're cold calling, you need to get past the gatekeeper. You need to ring in the morning before 8 o'clock, and you need to ring in the afternoon after 5 o'clock. Because I was dealing with a gatekeeper a couple of weeks ago, and the gatekeeper was reluctant to put me through to this person. And, if I was really motivated, I would just keep going back every day and asking if I could talk to this person. And, be polite to the gatekeeper, because the gatekeeper can keep you out. So be very polite, be very nice, ask what their name is, call them by name, thank you, yes, no, and, be nice, because they'll be the ones that'll get you in. If you're not sure how to cold call and what to say or what to do, make sure that you rehearse, write it down. There's lots of information on the website about things that you need to say when you cold call. Introduce yourself. Ask if you could have a couple of minutes of time. That's always appreciated when you're looking for work and the people are busy. If they don't have time, then say, listen, is there another time that I could call you back? Give your spiel, because after they say, yes, I got a couple of minutes, there's going to be silence on the phone, and that silence, it's hard, but you got to move forward, and you got to say to them, listen, my name is Rick August. I'm looking for a job as a truck driver. I have this much experience. I've done this kind of work. I'm really good at dealing with customers and those types of things. Are you looking for work? Or do you have any openings for drivers rather? And they'll say no. And at that point, when they say no, don't hang up. Say to them, listen, can I drop off a resume? Yes, you can. Is there a time that would be convenient for me to do that? Because you want to try and get that little mini interview. You don't want to be giving it to the gatekeeper. You want to give it to the operations manager. And you want to try and get through to the operations manager when you're looking for the job. And if they say, no, you can't drop off your resume, we're booked, we're inundated, we got too many people right now and those types of things, don't just hang up. Say, listen, do you know anybody else in the industry who might be hiring truck drivers? Because all these people know each other in the industry and they know whether they're hiring or not. One of the guys that I used to work with on the island used to go out and have lunch with 2 or 3 of the other guys and operations managers who all worked in the trucking industry in that area where we were situated. So know that when you're looking for work. So don't just hang up when they say no. Keep asking questions until you get the answers that you want, or get yourself another lead, because these companies that you're calling are your best source for leads. Okay? Know that these people are busy. If you don't get through to them, try again. And also, when the ad goes in the paper, know that these people are going to be inundated with a pile of resumes that's this high, okay? And that's this high from the floor. By the time the ad goes in the paper, it's too late. You've already lost the position. So know that when you're cold calling, know that when you're networking, you are doing these people a favor, because now you might be 1 or 2 applications for a job that if it went in the paper, there's now going to be 30, 40, 50, 300 applications, and they have to go through all of those applications to decide who is going to be their employee. Excuse me. And that's really tough. That's a lot of work. I know 2 years ago, I'm a landlord, and I put out an advertisement for a unit here, actually the house that I live in upstairs. We had like 20 people come through, and because the rental market is so scarce here in Vernon, I had like 8 people not only give me an application, but give me a deposit as well. And it was a lot of work for me to decide who that person was that I was going to put in as the tenant. And it's the same thing with these people who are doing the hiring. It's a lot of work for them to find somebody who's going to fill the position, especially when you've got 30 or 40 applications, and 10% of them, 5 or 10 of those people are all going to be equally qualified. So you got to know that you have to do the network. You have to do the cold calling. You have to get past the slush pile, because as in this image here with all this boxes of mail, you don't want to be in that pile, because if you are in that pile, you are not going to get a job. I can almost guarantee you that. All right? Resume, cover letter, thank you letter. All right? So if you are not good with computers, you are not good at typing stuff and putting stuff out, get somebody professionally to do your resume. You can go on Fiverr.com and hire somebody to do your resume for a few dollars and have it look really professional. And your cover letter and your resume should match. And don't put in a resume without a cover letter. As well, you want reference letters. You want to call your references and you want to say, listen, I've put in for a job. I've listed you as a reference. Send your resume to your reference. And that way, if the company calls, they can speak to the points on your resume, because the people that you list as your references may not know you very well. They may not know your work history. When I was working as a professor at the university, a lot of students asked me to write references for them because they were applying for scholarships and applications and those types of things. And when they were doing that, I would write reference letters, and most of the time I would just write it off their resume about who they were and what I knew of them in the classroom. So that was another thing that I did as well. All right, and if there is an application that you need to fill out that the company has that they want you to fill out, get 2 copies, take it home, fill one out, and then take it back in so that it's done neatly and well. Because the point that I want to make is that with your resume, with your cover letter, with your application, this is all indicative that you can do the paperwork required of you for the job as a truck or bus driver, because you are going to have to do paperwork as a truck or bus driver. And this starts with your resume, your cover letter, and your application. This is why I tell you, get 2 applications, take them home, and fill them out at home. And that way, it's very neat. It's filled out completely, because one of the things that is a dead giveaway on a job application is that there's pieces missing. There's big holes in your application. If you have a hole in your application because you had children and you took 3 years off work to raise your kids, then put that in there. Say, listen, worked at home, looked after my kids, domestic housewife, domestic engineer. Put that in there. Don't leave stuff out. Put all of that information in there so there aren't any gaps. And a lot of these companies, these bigger companies, are going to sort of want to see 10 years of employment history. And they don't want to see big gaps. They want to know why there are going to be gaps in your resume. So know that when you're filling out the paperwork to work as a truck or bus driver. Now, the other thing is follow up. Make sure that you follow up. So I always, after I send in an application, I send in a resume. One of the ways to get yourself out of the slush pile is by sending thank you letters. And it doesn't have to be very long. It can be very short. It could even be on a card. You just put the person's name on it. Thank you for your time and energy in considering my application for a position with your company. If you require further information, and then put your contact information on it, okay? And send it off to them. I really encourage you to use snail mail. Don't send an email. Send it in the mail. That way they physically have something in their hands that is going to remind them of who you are and that you said a thank you thing. Okay? Now, following up. If you send in a resume within a week, call back. Say, listen, I sent a resume in last week. I was just wondering if you had time to consider it. How long might it be before we hear of a decision? Is there something else I can do or anything else you need? Be very polite, ask questions, and follow up. Don't just let it lie there and let it be their decision, because as I said, people are very busy, okay? So be polite and simply follow up. And same thing if you get a job application, or not a job application, but an interview. If you get an interview, same thing, follow up. Say to them at the end of the interview, when do you think you might be making a decision as to who will get the position? If they say it's 3 or 4 days, you don't hear within 3 or 4 days, yes, it's most likely that you didn't get the position, but call back and say, listen, have you made a decision yet? And they may not have. They may have got delayed and got something else happened or whatnot. So make sure that you follow up with the job, okay? Interview process. Submit an application, ask what kind of interview and how many questions, or how many interviewers, okay? Because you can get thrown off by this. If you show up for a job interview and you're thinking it's just going to be you and the operations manager, and you show up and it ends up being the lead foreman, the HR person, the operations manager, and one, supervising driver, 4 people interviewing you, that can be a bit daunting. Because I've been in job interviews where it's like that, where it's 3 or 4 people, and it can be intimidating when it's 3 or 4 people asking you questions. So ask what kind of interview it is, because there's all kinds of interviewing styles and different questions that you can ask, and all of this is available on the internet, and you can practice and find those questions on the internet before you go in. Ask if you should bring anything to the interview. You should bring your resume or your cover letter, and it's a good idea to bring those anyway, because they may not have it, and here it is. I'm prepared. Look, I have a copy for you right here. Okay, how long before they contact you, and then, if possible, get a debriefing. Sometimes, in my experience, I haven't found the debriefing very good because, some of the jobs that I've, particularly government jobs, applying for ICBC and those types of things, when I get debrief, at least in my personal experience, I tend to find it very subjective. It hasn't been objective in terms of why I didn't get the job and those types of things. It might just be that I was a bit bummed out that I didn't get the job or whatnot. But that's what happens. So, do ask for feedback because, all of this is a learning process in terms of moving forward and getting the job that you actually want. All right. All right, so good luck in your road test. Good luck finding a job, and we'll answer any questions that you have about finding a job or working as a bus or truck driver or those types of things. There we go. I'm having a little trouble with the computer tonight. It's not, my fingers and stuff aren't working they normally are. I think I'm a bit tired. All right, Mark, Ontario BMZ looking to progress to A. Is there an age limit to you think for trucking as a second career? How old are you, Mark? Because as I was saying, Bill Walker, one of my poster child students, Bill was 61, 62 when he came in to do his truck driving license and then worked in the oil field. So no, I don't think there's any age limit in terms of you getting a job as a truck or bus driver and working in that as a career, until you retire. I know lots of people who are a lot older still working in the industry and doing very well. Gypsy, I can't drive and scared. And you have your CDL. Okay. Any more information? That's Gypsy. Why is it that you don't think you can drive? Sign cutter, like your idea of a business partner. There's someone I can think of that has a truck with a hopper working in the local area. I might approach him concerning a little, for experience. On the job training. Absolutely, sign cutter. Any experience that you can get working, and basically, it's like I said, you need to show people that you're motivated. We had one gentleman, he wasn't my student, but he was another instructor's student who went through the driving school in Kelowna, and he wanted to work for this one particular company, but they were known for only hiring experienced drivers, and he was fresh out of truck driving school. So what happened was he was determined he was going to get a job, and basically what happened is that he went down to the company and he sat in the office. He sat in the reception area for 3 days, from 8 to 5 every day. He went in for 3 days, and then finally he got talking to the receptionist and those types of things, and they kind of figured out who he was on the second day. And the third day he sat there, and I think it was the fourth day that they came in. He came in and they finally. They were short a driver, or somebody didn't have a load or whatnot, and they said to him, can you take this load out? And he took the load out, and he was hired. And sometimes that's what you got to do to get a job. It's not easy, but you can get a job. You can do it. Excellent. Hall phase, runaway truck lamps. How do they work? You basically drive on them, and you either there's two kinds. There's ones that go uphill and they slow the truck down using gravity, or the other one is the arrestor beds, they're called, and essentially you come down into them and they're pea gravel. There's 6 feet of pea gravel, and essentially the truck just kind of sinks into the pea gravel, and that's what slows the truck down for runaway lanes. And it's due to brake fade. If you overheat the brakes too much, the brakes won't work anymore, because what happens is the drums expand away from the shoes, or the disc brakes heat up too much and everything kind of melts into a big pile of goo. It's just poor training. The driver hasn't been trained properly to run in the mountains, is what is most of the time the reason for brake fade. Because it doesn't take very much experience driving in the mountains to know that you're using the service brakes too much. Okay, Mark, I'm 50, working now as a school bus driver and love it. Awesome. Want to get into long haul for a few years, do some traveling. Okay, Mark, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm going to say to you right now that driving truck long haul is not it's not traveling. It's not traveling, Mark, at all, in any stretch of the imagination. You are working. So, uh, yeah. I mean, if you love driving, it for a couple of years it might work out for you, Mark, but it's a lot of work, and big trucks are not. They're not cars. They're meant for interstates. They're meant for big roads, and yeah, it might be something that'll work out for you, but it's not. It's not traveling. It's not driving a big truck is not traveling. I mean, I would give it a go for a year and see how it goes and see whether you like it or not, and then decide at that point whether it's something you want to continue to do. Because I mean, if you get the experience of driving long haul for a year, then you can pretty much do anything you want to do after that. And going back to my experience of driving long haul, for the first year, it was fun. And then after the first year, unfortunately after that, it was just a lot of work and looking at a lot of interstate. So, yeah, that's basically my take on it. Haul phase, can you drive out or do you have to get towed? So one that goes up the hill, you can drive out if your brakes cool down and they work again. Oftentimes, once you've overheated the brakes, they're hooped and you have to get them fixed by a mechanic. The other ones, the arrestor beds, you have to be towed out of. You can't drive out of those. So yeah, the only arrestor bed that I know of, I've seen a lot more of them in the east, in Ontario and Quebec and the Maritimes and those types of places. There's one here outside of Merritt, but most of them here are all the gravity ones that go up the side of the hill. Okay, Mark, love driving, not afraid to work. Then you know something, Mark? You're probably going to love it. You're probably going to love it. So, like I said, give it a year. Give it a go. And as I said, for the first year that I was driving truck, I absolutely loved it. It was great fun. So, you're not going to have any trouble getting job as a long haul truck driver. It's easy to do. So you get your license and you can go and work as a long haul. Now, one of the things I would suggest to you, Mark, is seriously considering running. The thing that I learned this at the end of my career as a truck driver, which I really wish that I had have learned it sooner, because what happened was I was hauling vans my whole career for the most part. I did haul flat deck and garbage trailers and those types of things, but for the most part I hauled vans. When you back into a loading dock, essentially they forget about you. And the reason they forget about you is because you're not in their way, right? The loading dock is specifically designed for the trucks, and you're not in the warehouse. The truck's not in their way. Whereas with flat deck, when you come into a timber mill, for example, when you get unloaded, you're in the middle of the timber mill. You're in the road for the most part. Wherever you pick up freight. If you're picking up pipe, you're in the middle of the yard where they're trying to load other trucks and put stuff out and those types of things. So they're working fairly quickly to try and get you loaded so that you can move over and get strapped and get out of there. So you're going to get loaded a lot more quickly and unloaded quickly with a flat deck, and you're going to get more money because you get money for tarping, you get money for strapping and those types of things. So if you don't mind a bit of work, I would seriously counsel you to consider hauling flat decks. All right. Bashka, I passed my road test Monday this week for AZ in Ontario, Canada. That is awesome. And you went through the minimum entry level training program. So that's really great. And whereabouts in Ontario, Bashka, did you pass your AZ? That's really great. Do you have some work lined up as well, Bashka? Awesome. Hall phase. Truck driving school is good if you like seeing different places. Not so sure about that, Hall phase. I've been to a lot of places in the States. I haven't really seen a whole lot of the States. Mark, I can always drive for movies here, but get bored. Yes, you could, Mark. Yeah, I understand there's a lot of sitting with the moving companies and whatnot. Mark, any recommendations in Toronto for schools? Yes, truck driving and forklift school, I think it's called. Just look it up on Google there. Actually, I had a student who just recently went to truck driving school there in Toronto, and he went to one of the competitors. He didn't find it very good, and I recommended this other one because it had a really good rating on Google, and he went there and said that it was really good. Michael, do you know any companies that will take me on unsupervised probation? I have no restrictions to travel. I have, yeah, and it's, I got more than 1 year. Michael, essentially, in terms of living in Missouri and getting a job, I don't know any companies off the top of my head. Maybe some of the other smart drivers here might know some, but essentially, you need to get on the phone and you need to call companies. You need to tell them what your situation is. Be very upfront with them about it, and just say, listen, I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to get a job, and just make a lot of calls. Talk to everybody that you can. All right. Bashka, it was in Burlington. Excellent, Burlington. And Bashka, did you have a good experience with the truck driving school that you went to and attended and got your license? Did you have a good experience there? And do you have any jobs lined up as well? Hall Phase, how far north can you drive truck in North America? Ooh, how far north? Pretty far in the ice roads in the wintertime. I don't know exactly how far. Okay, Mark, good point on the flat deck. You're most welcome. Michael, I have a bad job history in the last 6 years, only 20 clean MVR. Michael, you definitely have your work cut out for you. There's no doubt about it. And Michael, you may need to get any work that you can, whether it's working as a delivery guy, driving parcels in a van, anything that you can do to kind of build up your job history again. I don't know, there might be some companies out there that might hire you. I mean, talk to Swift, talk to the other big companies in the States, Schneider National, JB Hunt, those types of companies. Talk to these companies and see whether they will take you. Some of these larger trucking companies in the States will take drivers without a whole lot of experience. So talk to them, tell them, what your situation is, tell them that you're willing to do, because, we're all willing to give somebody a second chance if they come across as being motivated and looking like they want to change their life and sort things out. So talk to companies, talk to the larger companies and say to them, this is my situation, this is what happened, I made a mistake, I'm trying to get my life back on track. I'm looking for an opportunity to work. Can you help me out? Right? And be very honest with them and do everything that you can to move forward and get a job. But it's not going to be easy. I'm going to tell you that right now. You are going to have to talk to a lot of different people. You're going to have to network, and you're going to have to be vigilant in talking to people, and it's going to be a bit depressing. So, there could be times that you could get down, is what I meant to say. And what I would strongly suggest to you is to get a network around you, a support network of people that can help you out. Friends, family, people that you can talk to, somebody that you can go and have a beer with and have a bitch session with. And this goes not just for Michael, but this also goes for anybody who's looking for a job, because I have had periods of time in my life where I've been unemployed for a year and I could not find work. And it's soul crushing. It's really tough. It's really tough. I mean, at the time I was fortunate that I was living with a woman who was, had a good job and whatnot, but it's still, I think as men, I'm going to say this, I think it's a little bit tougher for us to be unemployed because we're supposed to be the breadwinner in the family. But this is an important point, is that you need a support network around you when you're looking for work and you're unemployed. Friends, family. As I said, go to the employment agencies. Go down there every day. Make a point to get up in the morning. Go down there, talk to them. Get support from the counselors there and those types of people. Get somebody that's going to hold you accountable for calling companies, for sending in resumes and those types of things. Because if you don't, then, after a month, you get a lot of steam going in resumes and those types of things, and then you forget one follow-up call or another follow-up call. And a few years ago, I was doing that, and I wanted a job as a safety officer, and I was calling this company that I really wanted to work for, Called them on month 1, called them on month 2, called them on month 3, called them on month 4 to follow up. No job, no job, no job. Didn't call them on month 5. Guess what happens on month 5? On month 5, the very job that I was looking for the company that I had been calling shows up in the newspaper. Because had I called them back on month 5, I probably would have got the job. I probably would have got the job and it wouldn't have had to gone in the paper. So make sure that you follow up. Make sure that you have a support network to do the work that you have to do, because it's really tough work. Finding a job is a full-time job. Know that, and get your support network in place. Hall phase. Imagine driving a rig on ice roads. Yeah, it's not as exciting as it sounds. Hall phase. Does anybody here or anybody watching on the replay know how fast they drive on the ice roads? It's not very fast. Bashka, it was Exultant School. It's called Chet. It's kind of a school and company. Since I passed, I still have to do their tests to work in the company. So right now I'm preparing myself for the interview on Monday. Awesome. So that's great. So it's a school and it's also a job. That's really great. That's awesome. Bashka, I'm really happy for you. That's great. Epic. If you're going for a bus driver career, which one makes more money? School bus or driving a motor coach, such as Motor Coach Industries? Do they teach you basics of Class B passengers? Epic, in my experience, I don't know. I can't comment on the United States. Jonathan's not here tonight, but Jonathan works as a bus driver there in New York. In my experience, tour coach and Greyhound people and those types of things, they tend to make a bit more money than school bus drivers. You have to understand that school bus drivers only work a few hours a day. They only work, probably a maximum of 4 hours a day. So they're only working half days. So they're not making as much money as regional or long haul bus drivers would be making. Okay, so finding a job, figure out what kind of a job you want, resume, cover letter, thank you notes, those types of things, interview processes. Make sure that you have all of that paperwork in, because the paperwork is indicative of your ability to do the job and fill out the paperwork that is required of you when you start working, because you're going to have to fill out log sheets, trip sheets, time sheets if you're working locally. You're going to have to fill out fuel expenses and those types of things. There you go. Mark, who's a school bus driver, just said there's no money in school buses. Yeah, because you're only working 4 hours a day and those types of things, and they don't get paid a lot of money. So there's more money in driving coaches. When I drove coaches in Australia, I was making $25 an hour, and I was working anywhere kind of 60 to 70 hours a week. So what's 60 times 25? 6 times 20, 12. I was making $1,000 a week, more or less. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, Hall Face. All right, so thanks everybody for showing up. If you have any more questions, head over to the Smart Drive Test website. There's a lot more information over there in terms of job search and those types of things. You can always get in touch with me, Rick at smartdrivetest.com. Leave me a comment here on the channel. Hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching on the replay, leave us a comment down in the comment section. And if you like what you see here on the channel, consider subscribing as well. Always happy to see you here and be part of the Smart Driver community. All the best. And for those of you who passed the road test in the last couple of weeks, congratulations. And if you have a road test coming up in the next week or so, good luck on that. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.